Lesson 2.6, angle pair relationships. A line that intersects two or more lines is called a transversal. When this happens, we get special angle pairs, in addition to our linear pairs and vertical pairs that we get intersecting any two lines. Angles within the figure are called interior if they are inside the boundary lines, and exterior if they are outside the boundary lines. Here's a figure. So what you're being asked to do is label first the transversal and the boundary lines. My transversal is the line that's going to cross the other two, so this would be our transversal, and our other two lines we're just going to refer to as boundary lines. This creates the interior and exterior regions of our graph. Your next piece says to shade the interior and exterior using different colors. Do this very lightly because we're going to still need the figure. So this blue part is interior, the way I have this shaded, and then the green part out here and up here, both of these would be exterior. The next thing it's going to ask you to do is actually name interior and exterior angles. So when I'm looking at this figure, my interior are the angles within the boundary line. This is my interior region, so my interior angles would be angle 4, angle 3, angle 5, and angle 6. My exterior, since my exterior angles or region is out here, my exterior angles would be the other four angles, 1, 2, 8, and 7. It's important to recognize whether angles are interior or exterior because that makes a difference when we name their relationships to each other. Okay, so let's talk about our first angle pair relationship. This is called alternate exterior angles, and it's kind of just what the name sounds. They have to both be exterior angles, and they have to alternate or go across our transversal. So they stay outside the boundary lines and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. So for example, angle 1 is an exterior angle. So if I cross my transversal, I'm somewhere over here, and if I have to stay outside the boundary line, I'm going to go right here to the other cluster. So angle 1 and angle 7 would be alternate exterior angles. This is similar to what we did with linear pairs and vertical angles. It takes two to make that relationship. Okay, there is another pair of alternate exterior angles, and if we look at angle 2 and we go through the same thing to the other cluster of angles outside and across the transversal, we're going to get to angle 8. So this would be angle 2 and angle 8. We can do the same thing with interior, except instead of calling them alternate exterior, they will be alternate interior. It's the same concept. From one cluster to the other one, crossing the transversal. So angle 4 and angle 6, angle 3 and angle 5. 4 and angle 6, angle 3 and angle 5. Those would be our alternate angles. Our next set of angle pairs are, instead of crossing the transversal, this time they're going to stay on the same side. We call these same side exterior angles. So from angle 1, we're going to stay on the same side and go to the other cluster, and we're going to get to angle 8. So angle 1 and angle 8 would be same side exterior angles. Can you name the same side exterior angle that goes with angle 2? Go ahead and do that on your notes. Treat this like a try-me. You should have this one filled out. We can do the same thing for interior angles. So we have angle 4 staying on the same side and staying inside my boundary lines. 4 would go with 5. So angle 4 and angle 5, and then we have one more pair which you should be able to see right here. Make sure that you name that in your notes as well. Same side angles are also referred to as consecutive angles. You need to be comfortable with both of these terms because they will be used interchangeably. So if it's asking you about consecutive angles, it's referring to same side angles. All right, there's one more special pair that we've created, and these are called corresponding angles. If you notice with the others, they were either both exterior or both interior angles. Corresponding, you'll actually have one of each. What you want to do is imagine picking up one cluster of angles and setting it on top of the other cluster and looking at the two angles that would match up. So corresponding angles are in the same relative position to the two boundary lines. So for angle 1, it is above and to the left of, above the boundary line to the left of the transversal. So if I go to the other cluster of angles, I need to go above my boundary line to the left of the transversal, and I'm going to get to angle 5. Again, notice if you picked up the top angle and set it on top of the bottom, or the top cluster on top of the bottom cluster, angles 1 and 5 would be paired up. So angle 1 and angle 5 would be a pair of corresponding angles. So let's find another pair of corresponding angles. Above the boundary line to the right of the transversal, above the boundary line to the right of the transversal. Angle 2 and angle 6 would be corresponding angles. There are two more pairs. We have angle 4, and that's below the boundary line to the left of the transversal. So below and to the left is angle 8. So we have angle 4 and angle 8. And our last set would be angle 3 with angle 7, to the right of the transversal and below the boundary line. Sometimes these are the harder ones to identify, but if you just imagine picking up one cluster and setting it on the other, that will generally be the easiest way to figure that out. In addition to this, we still have vertical angles and linear pairs that we remember from before. If you remember, a linear pair are a pair of adjacent angles that form a straight angle. So for example, angle 1 and angle 2 would form a linear pair. We're telling you here that there are 8 of them. I want you to go name the rest of these. You will not get full credit for your notes if you have not filled out this part. Okay, so now let's talk about vertical angles. It's the same kind of idea. We already understand vertical angles. So for example, right here would be a pair of vertical angles. Vertical angles will always be found within a single cluster, and they're formed by your intersecting lines. So angle 5 and angle 7 would be a vertical pair. We're telling you here that there are 4 of them. Again, I want you to stop the video and name the other 3 vertical pairs. You need to make sure that this is complete to get full credit for your notes. Just as a reminder, and this is an important distinction, vertical angles and linear pairs are all formed within a single cluster. If you circle the 4 angles in a cluster, it can help you kind of narrow down the relationship between the angles you're looking at. Alternate interior and exterior, same side interior and exterior, and corresponding all use angles from 2 different clusters. So now let's practice this. We have this figure, and if your copy of your unit guide is missing the labels, I want you to stop the video and copy these letters into your figure right now so that you've got that to be able to do these bottom problems. Okay, so angle Z and angle E. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to identify my clusters. So these are my 2 different clusters, and I want to find the angles I'm looking at. Angle Z is here, angle E is here. Since these are in 2 different clusters, I know they can't be a linear pair or vertical angles. They are both inside my boundary line, so they are a pair of interior angles, and they cross the transversal, so they have to be alternate interior angles. Okay, let's look at the next one. We've got G and H. G is right here, and H is here. Since these are both exterior angles and on the same side of the transversal, these will be same side exterior angles. The next one is J and H, and if you notice, those two are within a single cluster, which means they are restricted to either a linear pair or vertical angles. Since these are only share a vertex and they're formed by intersecting lines, these are going to be vertical angles. I want you to stop the video now and finish the rest of these as trimies, and then resume the video. Okay, hopefully you've got all those correct. We'll check those in class. We'll check those next time. So let's look at our final task, and this is to determine which line is the transversal if we know the relationship between the angles. So again, I want you to look at this figure. If you are missing the labels, I want you to stop the video and record these labels, or this won't make any sense. Okay, hopefully we have that all labeled. So our first one tells us that angle A and angle M are alternate exterior angles, and we want to look at the transversal line for that. So our first thing, I'm going to go ahead and identify all of my clusters, because I think that's going to make this a whole lot easier. And I'm going to find the two angles that it's talking about. It says angle A and angle M. Well, for these two angles to be alternate exterior, they have to be on opposite sides of the transversal. And that means my transversal has to run through both clusters. The only line that runs through both clusters is this line right here, which would be line W. So our first one would be W. Let's look at the next one. K and N are consecutive interior. So let's go find K and N. Here's K, and here's N. Same side interior. Well, to be interior, my boundary lines have to be W and X. To be on the same side of the transversal has to cut through the two clusters, making my transversal V. I want you to stop the video now, and I want you to finish the rest of these as trimies, and then you should have all of your notes complete. We will go through the trimies in class next time. Once you finish that, you should be getting your MML assignment completed for class.